When there is no consequence, there is no change. And that, my friends, is exactly why this message today needs to hit harder than ever before. They lied, they manipulated, they disrespected your soul, twisted your truth, and walked away with a smirk, while you were left picking up the pieces of a heart they never intended to protect. But now they want peace, a reset, a clean slate with no cost. They want to smile in your face like nothing ever happened and expect you to swallow your pain just to keep things normal. No, not this time. Because this time, you're not here to play nice. You're here to show no mercy. If you've ever doubted yourself for walking away, if you've ever felt guilty for cutting someone off, or been called dramatic just for remembering what they did, then smash that like button right now and hit subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see forgiveness forever. Stay with me, because the lies you've been told about mercy, kindness, and unconditional patience, we're burning those down today. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine you leave your front door wide open every single day, hoping the people you love will come in gently, respectfully, like guests. But instead, someone storms in with muddy boots, breaks your furniture, steals your peace, and then blames you for locking the door the next time. That's what it feels like when you set a boundary, and the wrong people call you heartless for it. It's not that they didn't know what they were doing, it's that they never expected you to stand up and say no more. You see, we live in a world that praises mercy but forgets justice. People throw around phrases like, be the bigger person, or let it go, like they're spiritual shortcuts to peace. But let me ask you something. If you forgive without reflection, if you accept an apology without change, and if you give second chances without any accountability, what exactly are you teaching them? That you're soft, that they can harm and return, on repeat. You're not healing, you're enabling. And don't let that fake humility fool you either. The ones who hurt you may act like they're ashamed, but their shame vanishes the moment they think they've gotten away with it. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That includes the power to say, I no longer allow you access to the parts of me you've broken before. That's not revenge, that's wisdom. The truth is, some people don't need another conversation. They don't need a spiritual bypass. They need consequences, real ones. Why? Because your peace of mind is not a rental property. They don't get to trash it and expect to stay for free. And guess what? When you finally stop letting them in, they'll call it cruelty. But don't let that shake you, because cruelty isn't saying, I've had enough. Cruelty is what they did when they thought you'd never leave. You were never too much. You were never too cold. You were just too forgiving for too long. But today, we're shifting the power back to where it belongs, with you. You get to decide who enters your life, who gets to stay, and most importantly, who no longer deserves the gift of your presence. Not because you hate them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for people who never once handed you a bandage. This video isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries, it's about rebuilding, it's about reclaiming what was always yours, dignity, clarity, and peace. Because at the end of the day, you can forgive someone in your heart and still block their number. You can wish someone well and still never let them near your soul again. So stay with me, my friends, because we're about to go through 7 brutally honest reasons why they absolutely deserve the consequences of their actions. And no, you're not cruel for wanting justice. You're clear, you're awake, you're done handing out free passes to people who treat your heart like it's disposable. Now take a deep breath and write this in the comments. No more free passes. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and most importantly, stay with me. This is your moment to rise. Protect your peace. Reason 1, because they knew exactly what they were doing. Most people aren't confused, they're just counting on you to stay silent. Let's rip the blindfold off right now. Some people didn't hurt you by accident. They weren't just having a bad day. They weren't confused, emotional, or struggling. No, they were fully aware of the line, aware of your trust, aware of the damage, and they crossed it anyway, not because they were lost, but because they assumed you were too kind to stop them. And the worst part, you probably gave them the benefit of the doubt, again and again. But here's the truth, folks. Some people only test how far they can go because they've learned you won't stop them. Picture this. Someone walks into a museum, sees a do not touch sign, and reaches out anyway. Not because they didn't see the sign, but because they think the guard won't say a word. That's how some people treat your boundaries. As optional, as negotiable, as if you won't enforce them. And let's be honest, haven't you done that? Lowered the standard, softened your no, swallowed your anger just to keep the peace. You weren't weak. You were hoping they'd wake up. But the painful truth is, they were wide awake the entire time. That's the lie we need to break right here. They didn't mean to hurt me. Oh, but they did. Maybe not with malice, but with convenience, with entitlement, with self-interest. And just because they didn't hit you with fists doesn't mean they didn't wound you with calculation. They watched your reactions, they studied your silence, they learned that guilt was your soft spot and empathy was your Achilles heel, and they used it, carefully, repeatedly, and now the fear creeps in. But what if I confront them and lose them? What if I'm wrong? What if they really didn't mean it? That's the emotional fog they thrive in, the hesitation, the overthinking, the benefit of the doubt that benefits no one but them. But listen, my friends, awareness without boundaries creates patterns, and those patterns become your prison. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change." Keyword, change. But what if they don't want to change? What if all they want is to continue, unchecked, while you do all the emotional labor? This is where your power begins. You don't need an argument. You don't need proof. You just need your truth, and your truth knows. They knew exactly what they were doing. So from today forward, let your silence say what your words have repeated too many times. Let your absence be the mirror they were never ready to face. And let your boundary be the consequence they never thought would come. Write this in the comments right now. They knew, and I see it now. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that your eyes are open, your standards are rising, and your peace is no longer for sale. And what's coming next? It only gets clearer, because the next reason? It exposes the apology trap, the one they've used to pull you back in every time. Stay with me. We're just getting started. Reason 2, because apologies without change are just manipulation. Apologies without action aren't apologies, they're strategies. Let's not sugarcoat it, folks. Some people don't say sorry because they mean it. They say sorry because it works. They say it to shut you up, to smooth things over, to reset the game and get another free pass. And you know what? It's worked for years. Because you're kind, because you want peace, because you've been told that forgiving is noble. And while that sounds spiritual on the surface, let's be real. It's also how manipulators survive. Imagine someone smashing a window, handing you a broom and saying, "I'm sorry," while stepping on another pane. That's what it looks like when they apologize while continuing the same behavior. Their mouth says, "I care," but their actions scream, "I'll do it again the moment you relax." That's not remorse, that's routine. And it works especially well on people like you, the emotionally aware, the deeply loyal, the ones who believe in giving others the benefit of the doubt, even when it costs you your sanity. Let's break a dangerous lie right now. They said they're sorry, so I should move on. No, you shouldn't. Not if nothing has changed. Not if the apology is just a temporary performance to buy back your compliance. Because if someone can hurt you, apologize, and then continue hurting you in the same exact way, that's not an accident, that's a system. And the system runs like this. They step out of line, offer a quick sorry, and count on you to do what you've always done. Minimize it, absorb it, pretend it didn't happen. You forgive, they feel better, and nothing changes. Except you. You get smaller, you get quieter, you start editing yourself to avoid rocking the boat, and they keep sailing along like the captain of your emotional ship, never once asking if you're still afloat. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't become cold, don't become bitter, but don't become blind either. Because compassion without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction. Real forgiveness doesn't mean accepting repeated harm. It means releasing the emotional poison inside you, but refusing to drink it again. Ask yourself, when they apologized, did anything actually change? Or did they just reset your tolerance level? Did they use guilt as a leash? Tears as a tactic? Did they say all the right words just long enough to slide back into your good graces, only to go silent when it was time to prove it? Because here's the thing, my friends, apologies without changed behavior are just rehearsed speeches, and people with experience in manipulation, oh, they're excellent actors. They cry on cue, they beg just right, they promise just enough, but look closely, they're not trying to heal what they broke, they're trying to keep the access to your time, access to your energy, access to your forgiveness. And you've done enough emotional labor for the both of you. You've cried enough tears. You've had enough sleepless nights trying to decode what their apology meant, whether it was real, whether they're finally going to be who you hoped they'd be. But it's time to face it. If they were really sorry, they'd be different by now. You deserve real change, not empty apologies. You deserve proof, not promises. You deserve peace, not pauses between betrayals. Write this in the comments. I don't accept apologies. I accept change. Say it for yourself. Say it for the version of you who always forgave too quickly. Say it for the peace you're protecting from this moment forward. Because next, we're going deeper. What happens when you keep paying the emotional bill while they keep benefiting? You're going to see why your pain has been profitable for them and why it stops now. Stay with me. Reason 3. Because you've already paid the emotional price. You don't owe continued loyalty to the ones who cashed in on your pain. Let's be honest here, my friends. You've already paid, not in money, but in sleepless nights, in swallowed words, in silent car rides where you stared out the window trying to make sense of something that should have never happened in the first place. You've paid in overthinking, in second chances, in conversations where you explained how you felt only to be met with defensiveness or silence. You've paid in patience, in forgiveness, in endurance, and still they want more. Still, they act like you owe them another shot at your peace, like your suffering didn't count because you never screamed. But let's stop right here and ask the real question. When is enough enough? Imagine being at a toll booth on a road that leads nowhere. Every time they hurt you, there's another fee, another emotional payment. You pay with your time, your love, your understanding. And every time you think the road is leading somewhere better, it loops back to the same betrayal. It's a psychological scam. You've become a loyal passenger on a ride that only benefits them. And the reason most people stay on that road, because they believe the lie that if they just love a little harder, hold on a little longer, forgive a little deeper, things will change. But the truth is brutal. The longer you stay, the more you teach them that hurting you comes with no cost. You don't make them grow. You make them comfortable. Let's break that chain. Let's burn that contract you never signed, but kept honoring anyway, because you've already paid the emotional price, and they're still pretending like the bill is unpaid. That's what manipulators do. They keep the meter running, even while you're standing still. This is your wake-up call. You don't owe them more of what they already abused. You don't owe them more patience, more explaining, more of your inner peace just so they can keep doing less and getting away with more. The debt is settled, the account is closed. And no, enforcing a boundary now isn't being harsh, it's just you finally realizing your worth. As Epictetus said, never depend on the admiration of others. There is no strength in it. Your strength lies in your clarity, in your decision to stop pouring into someone who's been drinking from your soul without ever saying thank you. So here's your affirmation, the one I want you to write in the comments right now. The price has been paid. Say it out loud. Say it with your chest. Say it for every version of you that kept hoping they'd change while they kept taking everything you had. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about exactly why they've been benefiting from your bleeding and how to make it stop for good. Stay with me. Reason 4. Because they're still benefiting while you're still bleeding. Some people don't want you healed. They want you quiet, confused, and available. Let that sink in for a second, because while you're over there questioning your worth, doubting your reactions, and losing sleep trying to understand what went wrong, they're doing just fine. In fact, they're thriving, not in spite of your pain, but because of it. Your confusion, it works in their favor. Your silence, it keeps them in control. Your endless grace, it keeps the doors wide open for them to come and go as they please. Meanwhile, you're bleeding emotionally, slowly, silently, and they're benefiting like they've won some invisible prize. Think about it, folks. Every time they mistreated you and you said nothing, they took that as a green light. Every time they disrespected your boundaries and you brushed it off, they grew bolder. They didn't feel guilt, they felt permission. And that's the lie they keep feeding you, that it's not that serious, that you're overreacting, that you misunderstood. But let's be real, they knew exactly what they were doing. And the only reason they're still doing it is because it works. Imagine a leaky faucet dripping slowly into a glass. At first, it seems harmless, but over time, that glass overflows. You were the glass, and they were the drip. A little insult here, a little gaslighting there, a forgotten birthday, a broken promise, a manipulation masked as concern, one drop at a time until you started drowning in what you kept calling small things. And they got exactly what they wanted. Access to your kindness, a seat at your table, a pass into your life without ever earning the right to stay. They were feeding off your empathy like emotional parasites, taking without giving, talking without listening, existing in your world like their presence was a favor instead of a privilege. But here's what they never expected: for you to notice, for you to step back and realize you've been bleeding for someone who never even brought you a bandage. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If that's true, then your soul has been soaking in the wrong shades for far too long. Shades of self-blame, confusion, guilt, and fear. It's time to rinse it clean. And the only way to do that is to stop letting people drink from your spirit while leaving you empty. So let this be the moment you reclaim your emotional real estate. Let this be the line in the sand where access is revoked, not because you're bitter, but because you're done playing host to people who drain you dry. Write it in the comments. No more free benefits. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your peace is not a public service, that your kindness is not an unlimited resource, that from this point forward they either add value or they lose access. And in the next section, we're going to expose why discomfort, not comfort, is what actually makes people grow, if they ever grow at all. Stay with me. Reason 5. Because consequences are what force growth, if it ever comes. People don't change when they're comfortable. They change when they're confronted. Let's get something straight, folks. If you keep protecting them from the fallout of their own behavior, you are not helping them grow. You're helping them stay the same. You're cushioning their immaturity with your strength. You're using your own emotional bruises to soften their fall. And in doing so, you've become their shield instead of their mirror. But here's the hard truth they don't want you to realize. No one transforms without discomfort. Not truly. Not deeply, not permanently. Think about it. A tree doesn't grow stronger when it's pampered. It strengthens its roots when it's pushed by wind, battered by storms, and tested by the elements. People are the same. When there are no real-world consequences, when everything is forgiven, tolerated, or brushed aside, they don't reflect. They don't evolve. They repeat. Because what you allow becomes their habit. Let me ask you something. How many times have you said, they'll change, they just need time? How many chances have you given under the belief that love alone would do the work discipline was meant to do? That if you were just more patient, more understanding, more forgiving, something would finally click inside them. But it didn't, did it? Because change doesn't come from comfort zones. It comes from pressure. It comes from consequences. It comes when someone finally hits the wall you stopped cushioning. And yet, we're told that drawing that line is mean, that enforcing consequences is harsh. But listen to me, there is nothing harsh about truth. There is nothing cruel about boundaries. Cruelty is what they did when they broke your trust and expected a hug. Cruelty is what they did when they kept repeating the same pain and said, I didn't mean to. That's not innocence, that's immunity, and you gave it to them. Out of love, out of guilt, out of fear. But not anymore, because consequences are not revenge, they are the reality check. They are the moment of pause where someone is finally forced to face themselves. And if they can't, if they guilt you, if they call you cold, then they were never interested in growth. They were only interested in control. As the Stoics taught, we don't control others. We only control our response. But that response doesn't have to be passive. Your silence can be your strike. Your boundary can be your clarity. Your absence can be the storm that shakes their illusion. So let this sink in. You are not responsible for their evolution, but you are responsible for your exposure. If they grow, it'll be because you stopped giving them a shortcut. And if they don't, that's their choice. But you're no longer standing in the way of the lesson. Write this in the comments right now. Growth starts with consequence. Let them sit in it. Let them miss you. Let them feel the distance. That discomfort, that silence. That's the only teacher they've never met before, because you were always too kind to introduce it. But next, we expose what mercy without limits turns into, and it's not love. Stay with me. Reason 6, because mercy has turned into madness. Too much mercy for the wrong people turns into slow self-destruction. Let's call it what it is, my friends. You weren't being too kind. You weren't being the bigger person. You weren't practicing unconditional love. No, you were being emotionally manipulated. And your mercy, it turned into madness the moment they realized they could do anything and still have a seat at your table. It's not your fault. You were trained to believe that kindness heals all wounds. that love can fix broken people, that patience will eventually inspire change. But let me ask you something. How long have you been patient while they've stayed exactly the same? Imagine giving someone a map out of the darkness over and over again, only to watch them keep folding it into paper airplanes and throwing it back at you. That's what it's like when you keep offering second, third, and 10th chances to someone who doesn't want growth. They just want access. They don't want healing. They want convenience. And your mercy becomes their loophole. This is where it gets dangerous, because when you offer forgiveness without requiring change, you teach them that hurting you is reversible, that there's no real price, that all they have to do is act sorry, say the right thing, send a long message, maybe cry a little, and boom, they're back in your world like nothing happened. And you keep bleeding behind the scenes, questioning your boundaries, wondering if you're too harsh for finally saying no. But here's the truth they never want you to realize. The longer you keep being merciful to someone who doesn't change, the more you lose yourself in the process. You become more anxious, more drained, more disconnected from who you were before the damage started. You walk on eggshells in your own home, in your own mind. That's not peace. That's captivity wrapped in kindness. And then there's the guilt. Oh, that voice in your head that whispers, but what if they really try this time? What if I give them one more shot and it works? Let me tell you, if mercy hasn't worked by now, more of it won't either. They don't need more of your forgiveness. They need the sharp, cold mirror of consequence, and you need your sanity back. Seneca said, "He who spares the guilty punishes the innocent." And in your case, the innocent has been you every time. You've taken the fall for their failures. You've protected their ego while they dismantled your spirit. And now, it's time to protect something else, yourself. So here's the affirmation I want you to write in the comments. Mercy ends today. Say it loud, say it clear, say it not from bitterness, but from truth. Because your peace should never be the price they pay nothing for. And next, we step into silence, the kind of silence that doesn't just protect you, it teaches them everything they refused to learn when you were still speaking. Stay with me. Reason 7. Because your silence is the real justice now. Your silence isn't empty. It's echoing in the places they thought they'd never lose you. Unknown. Let's make one thing absolutely clear, my friends. Silence is not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not running away. It's power. It's precision. It's the moment you stop begging someone to understand what they refuse to hear. And it's the most confusing and terrifying thing you can offer someone who's used to controlling you through chaos. They expected another argument, another explanation, another emotional breakdown they could use against you. But this time, you gave them nothing. And in that nothing, they heard everything. Imagine a stage where someone used to perform their apologies, their drama, their guilt trips. But now, the curtains are closed, the audience is gone, the lights are off. That's what your silence feels like to them. A stage with no one left to perform for, and the panic sets in. Not because they miss your voice, but because they can no longer manipulate your reaction. See, the people who disrespect your boundaries don't fear confrontation, they feed on it. What they fear is disconnection. They fear the void, the lack of control, the sudden absence of the energy they use to drain from you daily. That's why silence is not just peace, it's consequence. And the best part, it requires no performance, no fight, no scene, just calm, consistent detachment. But I get it. Silence feels unnatural at first. You want closure, you want justice, you want them to understand how bad they hurt you. But let me tell you something important. They already know. They've known. They were just never afraid of losing you. Until now. Your silence is what finally brings the storm, the one they thought would never come. And this isn't about revenge. This is about restoration, the restoration of your sanity, your power, your sense of self. When you go quiet, you're not giving up. You're taking back everything they mistook as theirs, your time, your voice, your dignity. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've finally said all there is to say, and now you're letting life respond for you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." But in your case, silence isn't just a response, it's a revolution. It's the final consequence, the one that doesn't come with tears or threats or ultimatums, just distance, just absence, just the sound of them realizing they lost something they thought was guaranteed. So write it in the comments right now. My silence is my justice. Let them feel it. Let the world feel it. And let yourself feel what it's like to finally be free from reacting, explaining, or overgiving. And if this series spoke to you, if it woke up something you've buried under guilt or confusion, smash that like button and subscribe. Because you're not just walking away, you're rising. And the next video waiting for you. It's not random, it's your next step toward becoming untouchable. Choose peace, choose power, choose silence.